Australian government will send combat support vehicles to help Kiev in its fight against Moscow's assault after Ukraine's president made an historic address to Australian Parliament. Volodymyr Zelensky issued a stark warning, saying Vladimir Putin poses a direct threat to Australia if he's not stopped. Joining me now live is the chair of the Australian Federation of Ukrainian Organisations, Stefan Romaniw. Stefan, thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask you about last night's historic address, but firstly, in the last few hours, Scott Morrison confirmed that Australia will send these Australian-made Bushmaster armoured vehicles after that request was made from Mr Zelensky. How confident are you that they will end up where they need to and on the front line?
Thanks for having us again. I'm very confident. I think the Australian government has been very upfront with what it's going to do, how it does it. It's with us, especially. I met with the Prime Minister after the meeting, after the Zelensky presentation yesterday. We discussed this. We discussed this with some people from the Department of Defence. President Zelensky made an appeal to Australia. At the same time, he thanked Australia for everything that he has done, the Australian government, also Australians in general. But I think he's also called out to the world, not just to Australia. They need military aid. They need the materials to be able to fight Russia, and not only on the ground, but also in the air. So I think this additional support that Australia is going to give Ukraine is very much welcomed by President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people.
It was an historic address, as you said. What do you think was the most important part of Volodymyr Zelensky's address?
Look, I think it was wonderful to see the reception that the president got. Both houses of parliament, both sides of politics, the galleries were full. We all got together because he had a message to us, and that is, if there's going to be a better world, we have to fight evil. We have to fight for our values. We have to fight for democracy. That message came through very, very loud and clear, as did that Russia needs to be stopped. And President Zelensky referred to MH17, saying that had the world maybe dealt with that issue and dealt with Russia far more solidly, we may not be in this situation today. Russia needs to be stopped. Putin needs to be stopped. But I think President's message was, we don't want war, we want peace. The Ukrainian people want peace. But we'll continue to fight. We'll fight with evil until the good prevails.
You mentioned that you spoke to the Prime Minister after. How was the address received?
Look, the Prime Minister, I think, was very, very satisfied with the fact that President Zelensky took time to speak to the Australian Parliament. Prime Minister Morrison, obviously, and also Anthony Albanese. They also met with the new Ukrainian ambassador who arrived the other day, Mr. Miroshnichenko, again passing on a message of thanks to President Zelensky for the presentation. But I think the whole thing just showed that President Zelensky, speaking not only to the Australian Parliament, but to the US Congress, to the House of Commons in Canada and other countries, he's taking a message. Ukraine wants peace, but you have to help us to get to this peace. We have to deal with this tyrant, and the only way to deal with this tyrant is to give us the military aid that we require. The people on the ground, and I speak to them quite often, people on the ground are very, very determined. They're very determined because they're fighting for their sovereignty, they're fighting for Ukraine's rights. And, you know, wherever I go, the question that always comes up is, why and how could this happen in 2022? So it's up to us, and I think to heed President Zelensky's message, we want peace, but we have to deal with the tyrant.
Australia also committed an additional $25 million in defence aid. What should that money go towards?
Look, there's different aspects. I know that on Thursday on Wednesday I was in Parliament as well. I know that people who Minister Dutton's department and others we're looking at different things. They're looking at drones. They're looking at other things that could help Ukraine in its battle, and moreover, look at what is it that can be helped in the airspace, because it's the airspace that Mr. Putin is just shooting, as you see, into kindergartens, into theatres, and doing a lot of damage. And that needs to be stopped, because on the ground, there's certainly Ukrainians are winning, and Ukrainians feel very confident they can deal with the Russians. And keep in mind that there are more and more Russian soldiers who are now defecting. They don't want to be there. It's Putin and his stupidity that's got himself into this situation. And now it's time for, again, I'll just reiterate, if this is going to end, then give Ukraine the military aid it needs. And they're not asking for boots on the ground. They're just asking for the lethal weaponry that will allow them to fight this tyrant.
Stefan, Romaniw, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks very much. Stay safe.